Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to stand here and to present to you my master thesis. And my topic is the implementation of coaching in international project teams. And it is an evaluation of the business leadership coaching training program in Volvo Car Group. And the presentation includes 4 parts. The theoretical framework of the thesis, theoretical research methodology, current situation of the empowerment leadership style and the coaching in Volvo, and I'm going to give some discussions from the culture perspective. So, firstly, we start take a look at the theoretical framework of the thesis. And the intention of this research is to help international organizations to move forward from the traditional leadership style to the empowerment leadership style. And the methodology to reach this goal will be coaching. So we start to look at the evolving leadership styles. And the key word of leadership is to motivate people. And therefore, I'm going to use this Maslow's human needs model to facilitate my explanation. According to Maslow's theory, the human needs can be described in different layers. And only if the lower layers have been somehow satisfied, and the people will generate their need in higher layers. In the first generation of the leadership style is the most traditional one, is the autocratic leadership style. And this leadership style is generated based on the Taylor's scientific management theory, which was proposed by the early of 20th century. And under this leadership style, manage and control is the typical behavior of the leaders and managers. And for the employees, they come to the factory to fulfill their needs about the safety, physiological, and maybe some part of a love of belonging, because they not only need to support their own survival, they also need to support their families. But all of them are very lower need. However, in the current situation, most of people, especially for people who have well-educated and highly competent, they don't worry about this kind of need. So they move forward. They concern more about the self-actualization and esteem. And in this context, a new leadership style is proposed. That is the empowerment leadership style. It's what we are trying to get now. And the empowerment leadership style is to shift the power from the leaders to the employees. Employees will get opportunity to make decisions, make judgment, and do the work in their preferred way. So they can somehow achieve their esteem and self-actualization. There are also some scholars proposed a more advanced leadership style, and that is the laissez-faire leadership style. And I guess if some of you know French, and laissez-faire literally means let them be and let them do. So in these circumstances, employees will get the maximum freedom about what they are doing. And for the leaders, will get the minimum interfere about the behaviors of the employees. However, it's a little bit like communism. It's a good one, but it's a little bit far away from the reality. Because in this kind of circumstances, the highly competent employees and will do the work automatically, self-motivated in the best way to do the work. So maybe it's better to move from the autocratic one to the empowerment one instead of jump directly. So I put this picture here, and I think most of you have participated coaching session, so I'm not going to give a very detailed explanation. And this picture is from my mentor in Volvo, Mr. Nicholas Peterson. And so I guess you're familiar with coaching. In these circumstances, leaders will just work as coaches, like a football coach, basketball coach, and they will encourage the employees to find their own way to solve the problems. And the key point is to increase the awareness and the responsibility of the employees. And therefore, this approach provides necessary abilities for the empowerment leadership. That's why they will be used as the tool to reach the empowerment leadership style. So we come to the research methodology. For the research methodology, I'm using the methodological triangulation. And that means the questionnaires, interviews, observations are used in my research to obtain data. And more than 100 of the participants have involved in this research. And the result is heavily based on the statistic result drawn from the questionnaires. And I also carried lots of interviews, and some of you have participated, some of them. And those information will be used to support and explain the result, the statistic result get from the questionnaires. So we come to the most important part, the result of the questionnaire. I know it's a very confusing picture, but I'm going to explain it very detailedly. Yeah, and each line here represents one question in the questionnaire. Each line is one question. And the answer is scaled from 1 to 7. 7 means strongly agree, and 1 means strongly disagree, and 4 is in the middle. And 7 means strongly agree about the coaching, is for the coaching, and strongly disagrees against the coaching approaches. And for here, the vertical axis is how many people have chosen the certain number as their answers. So from this picture, we can see the trend of the people's opinion about coaching. Most of the questions reach their peak by 5. That means most people have a more for opinion regarding the coaching instead of against. However, there are still some questions reach their peak by 4. It's like here. That means there are some points people have a very neutral opinion about it. Maybe the coaching approaches didn't do a very good job from those perspectives. So we are going to take a more close look at them. There are some questions marked here and have a relative lower scores. And that means the result of coaching is not so satisfactory. And those questions include the use of SBR, which is the situational-based reflection model, has decreased the level of conflicts in workplace. I have gained confidence in handling difficult leadership situations. Coaching contributes to stress reduction at the workplace, and coaching made me more courageous. For those points are not so good about coaching. And there are also some very good parts, and that is the coaching approach and the techniques helps me to be more patient with my employees. I would like to develop my coaching skills further. After the program, I have used active listening, and coaching leadership contributes to increased empowerment at Volvo and lead to a more positive working environment. I'm not just going to run through everything and jump to the next slide. I'm going to tell you how all the points are actually fit into one picture, and it's a complete one. So we just start from here. They are the positive side, and people can obviously see the promising future about coaching and the linkage between coaching and empowerment. People can see this. However, since most of the participants have only received 3 days of training about the coaching, so they're not so comfortable to use the coaching approaches to handle very difficult leadership situations and the stress reductions, or not courageous or not competent enough to use very complex model like SBR in their daily lives. So it will be quite challenging. What they can do for the current stage is to use the philosophy of coaching and so they become more patient with their employees. And furthermore, and they also use some basic tools generated from coaching, that is active listening. During the interview, some of the managers have told me they find it quite rewarding to be more patient and to use active listening because it's possible for them to get more information from the employees. So in general, and also we got this point here. So in general, even though the participants cannot yet fully utilize all the advantages of coaching, they can see the great potential of it, and they want to further develop their skills about coaching. There's also another interesting question I want to share with you. It's this one. Since the program ended, I have had one or more follow-up discussions regarding the coaching program with my supervisor. You can see from the picture, a very high percentage of the participants have no further discussion with their superiors. And it's kind of surprising because during the interviews, most of the people have reflected. They find it's quite rewarding to have the follow-up discussions, even because the discussions is about the official ones, organized one, instead of more private one. But they feel it's very rewarding to have this kind of sessions. This kind of reflections and the follow-up discussion keep that part of the memory fresh. They keep what they have learned from the coaching sessions and keep reminding them to use them. So it's very important. Furthermore, it's also a critical linkage between the academic field and the practical field. Because what they have done during the follow-up session is to fit the theories they learn from the coaching sessions into their daily lives. So it's also very important for their work. Therefore, since you are high managers of IT department, I will encourage you maybe to initiate more follow-up discussions with your subordinates or even further, because from the perspective of a Chinese person, I will assume it's a little bit hard for subordinates to initiate this kind of discussion, because I think it's hard to interrupt our higher leaders unnecessarily, because this topic is not directly work-related and it's not urgent. So
the group being studied, is that only on IT, or is it?
Is it only IT, or has it been?
The interview is based on
IT.
Only
IT.
IT.
Only IT. Yes. And since I mentioned from the Chinese perspective, because I'm a Chinese, you are not, I will assume some different. So that's the culture differences. When we talk about this, the first idea jumping into our mind is national cultures. And the Gatland have provided 4 pairs of criteria to distinguish different cultures. Let's take a look at them. It's relationship-focused, deal-focused, informal, formal, polychronic, monochronic, expressive, and reserved. And that is the very straightforward criteria to evaluate different cultures. Because we use these things, because we think it's reliable, got stereotypes of people from different cultures. Because it works in most cases, and it's also got the theoretical foundation. Then I will give you the Hofstadt's onion model of culture. According to Hofstadt, culture can be perceived like an onion, which have different layers. The outer layers, like symbols, heroes, and the ratios, will change over time. They're not so stable. However, the value part of the culture is super stable, and it will remain unchanged for centuries or even longer. However, this model was proposed by the 1980s. Due to the increasing pace of globalization and the internet connects the whole world together, the credibility of this model is highly suspicious. Therefore, in this context, a new model is proposed, and that is the yin-yang's perspective of culture, proposed by Tony Fung. I know it's quite cliche to put this picture here, and I believe you have seen this picture in the Chinese store, Asian stores, and lots of places, but I don't believe you know all the meanings of it. Of course, me neither, but I will try to explain some points. From this picture you can see, the distinction between this part and this part is not straight, and that means there's no clear cut between even the most opposite concepts. For example, there's no clear cut between light and dark. There's no clear cut between the high and low. These concepts will only make sense if they are put together and they are compared, objects are compared together. Those concepts will make sense. Otherwise, it's just pointless. And furthermore, no concept will reach its extreme level. Just like this picture, you can see here, in the black context, there are always some white inside. In the white context, there are always some black inside. That means there are always the opposite elements involved. And we can also take a picture, take an example from the previous part. there's no country is pure relationship focused or pure deal focused. All the country is combined by these two elements, and they will reach somewhere in the middle. So from this perspective to see the culture, we can see more common part instead of just the cultural differences. So this perspective provides us the opportunity to reach a better level of global and cross-cultural cooperation. So after discussing about the broader cultural concept, I'd like to report to you some results I have achieved regarding the aspired culture of Volvo. Because during my internship here, I have interviewed lots of people, both from Sweden and China, regarding the aspired culture.
Also group IT or in general?
No, group IT.
In general, this part is in general
as well?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Especially for the aspired culture, I interviewed the responsible person both in Chengdu and in Shanghai. And they are the first person to represent regarding the aspired culture. So it could be somehow persuasive. So, yeah. And what I'm going to talk about today is how the aspired culture of Volvo is connected to broader national culture, connect to the empowerment leadership, and connect to the future. The aspired culture was built up with the respect of national cultures, and it is a great example of international cooperation, collaboration, or even cohesion. We can simply take a look at the core values of the aspired culture. It includes three parts. The real challenge and respect represent the equilibrium culture of Sweden or even Europe. And for the move fast, aim high, it's actually a contribution from Volvo China. And it shows the strong intention of development. And for the passion for customers and cars is the basic emotion shared by all the Volvo people. So since this aspired culture fit into the national culture, so it has been fully accepted and become a guideline for all the activities. The aspired culture encourages employees to set their own goals, challenging goals, and the empowerment leadership style provide people with the authority and the capability to fulfill those goals. Therefore, by combining these two, the aspired culture and the empowerment leadership together, it makes it possible for Volvo to fully utilize the intelligent competence of the employees, as well as to obtain unparalleled competing advantage over the peer companies. In the current context, the transformation is irresistible, and it's true from both the culture part and also from the leadership part. It could be a threat, but it's definitely an opportunity. And we're setting out from the aspired culture with the tool of coaching, and Volvo will develop an environment with empowerment leadership, and most importantly, all these efforts will ultimately lead to the promising future which belongs to Volvo. That's my presentation. Thank you. You got some questions, and you are free to ask now.